Welcome, guys, to the Get Reelisms podcast. I'm Adam Chase.
And I'm Christine Chen.
There we go. Woo! We're doing it, guys. 1 hour later. Hell yeah. All right. So
better late than never. Better late than never.
Better late than never. So we just hang on. There we go. We just started our show like for the 7th, 8th time. And we were talking about Fun Employment, which is Christine Chen's first feature. And we were talking about the last podcast we had on season 1, which was the Fun Employment podcast. But we recently, well, I shouldn't say recently, we got it a while ago, got a cease and desist letter from another podcast with the same name who told us to take it down or they're going to sue us. So yeah, we're now sort of flying by the seat of our pants, and we're recording this on a Zoom through Facebook and Instagram, and we're trying to figure all this shit out. Thank you guys for sticking around and not leaving us. So yeah, let's just get the show started. Okay. So what we're going to be talking about is We're
just going to talk about films and anything.
Yes, absolutely. So let's begin with so we talked about Fun Employment for a little bit. So for people who don't know Fun Employment, you want to give a brief synopsis of Fun Employment?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure by now everybody knows what Fun Employment is, but if not, it is the first feature I ever made with no money, no resources, and no experience. And it's on Amazon, and it took forever because we had no money, no resources, all that stuff. And I had the crazy idea that I wanted to make a feature first before I made any shorts. Which, why I thought that was a great idea, I'm not sure, but honestly, it was a great idea because I learned everything that I know now. It was my film school, essentially, without that's actually monetizable, and I invested it in something. So, and it's basically about 4 wannabe entrepreneurs that try to survive in Austin, Texas. And it's on Amazon Prime. Just look up Fun Employment. You'll be able to find it. And it was a huge learning experience.
So, Christine, you went to Rice University. Did you learn how to work a camera and the basic fundamentals of production in Rice University? Or would you say, Fun Employment was kind of like you being thrown into the deep side of the pool and just trying to figure shit out? Because you probably learned the most from that.
Well, I actually did already start fiddling around with filmmaking prior to Fun Employment. And so what I was doing was I was doing sketches. So YouTube had just kind of started up, and it was getting big, and people were posting a bunch of stuff. And I, for the longest time, thought I was going to be a YouTube star. And when I was at Rice, I took a class it was a documentary intro class with Brian Huberman. That was my first foray with using cameras and reel editing. I had made stuff even prior to that when it was VHS, surprising or not. But all that was old school. You edit within the camera. So you film something, and then if it's wrong, you rewind to the spot that you want to cut at and re-record over it. That type of filmmaking.
So you're essentially editing on the fly.
Yeah.
And you have to adapt to there's no editing software that you use, so you just had to hit stop and then go back, record again, and then do it all over again.
I didn't know anything of that. I didn't know there were professional editing softwares in existence back then. So that was the first thing I ever made. And then after that, I made subsequent little short films for class to try to, instead of do a paper, I would convince my professor to let me make a video instead.
Yeah.
They've actually usually agreed to, because I think they were pretty bored with having so many paper, like essays and stuff. So I made a video on fashion in the 1950s. It was the 50s or 60s, 1960s. Fashion choices. And so I made a whole fashion video for my English class. And then I made a series of commercials for my microbiology class, basically showcasing microbiology within products. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So, like, toilet bowl cleaners made up from microbes, and just a whole series on that.
Wow.
Those were my first films, but yes, when I went to Rice, that was the first time I learned. It was actually Final Cut then. That was the big editing software at that point. It was Final Cut.
Okay.
So I was using. I learned Final Cut because it's the documentary film class, but I don't know if that would. I mean, it's all learning, but like documentary filmmaking is completely different from narrative. It's run and gun, shoot what you can. It's not very pretty most of the time, and it's just trying to capture the footage. So I feel like what I really learned in the beginning was more editing, because documentaries are all about finding your story through editing. And that's when I learned, like, oh, it looks more perfect, because the little camera I had, like, you just do the little button and it zooms in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It zooms in. Well, I learned
like
that
a camcorder?
it's a camcorder. So it's not even
okay.
Yeah, I had a camcorder. That's what it was.
Right.
And I learned that if you cut out the zoom part and cut directly to the close-up, it looks much more cinematic. Stuff like that.
Yeah, it does.
So that's what I learned was editing, and it's I'm realizing now that it's really translating into the choices of films that I make, because I really never thought that I was a super politically charged or whatever type of person, but then I'm realizing I'm picking topics that I would have been interested in as a documentary filmmaker, but doing them from a narrative context. So doing the research.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, Albee was very much a Syrian refugee. It was a topic of interest. And then Shakespeare in the Range even was about prison reform. So that was something I was interested in learning, and did a lot of research and wrote a script about it. And this time I got en route on PTSD amongst first responders. And again, a crap load of research, and so it's like
well, it's interesting that you find similarities between documentary style filmmaking and narrative filmmaking, because working with you, and for those of you who don't know, I was I guess I still am a mentee of Christine Chen's, and everything that I learned in terms of film industry lingo, reading Get Reelisms, learning from you, learning how to be a PA without getting in everybody's fucking way, and just adapting to the lifestyle of filmmaking, especially independent filmmaking. And if for you, documentary style and narrative, like you said, are two separate things, but you somehow kind of made it connect, for you in terms of how you direct and how you write, because the experiences, for those of you who haven't seen Albee, it's also on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
So I always find it interesting because your narratives are so grounded in reality that it's almost like you shot it like as if it is a documentary, even though it's a narrative, and how you do that. What's the biggest takeaway that you learned doing documentaries that you apply through narrative?
I think just research. I think
just research. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to showcase anything of a real topic, of any sort, you want to be very careful with how you showcase and represent groups of people. And I think that's the problem that we're seeing a lot right now in Hollywood, is that content creators aren't sensitive to that. And so they end up portraying people in a more stereotypical trope aspect than they actually do in terms of a realistic representation of a group of people. So, like for Yalbi, my biggest test for whether the film was successful was we actually were invited to showcase at a Austin refugee group, and people who were there a lot of them were Syrian refugees, and it was super nerve-wracking because here I am with a film about them. They're about to watch it. That was the best test for them to come after watching that film and tell us, hey, like, this is an exact representation of what it's like to go through the Syrian refugee crisis. Now that, for me, was phenomenal.
Because you have honesty. There's honesty through your storytelling. And I can say the same for En route as well. I mean, and I think even for films like Shakespeare on the Range or any of your other short films, there's a level of honesty that has to be there, you know. Yeah. And you always have to be honest, no matter what. That's how you can grab the audience. That's how, and I guess you're right. That is a fundamental difference in Hollywood, is that Hollywood just, you know, they don't really want to pay attention to any of that shit, but they rather.
No, because it takes time. It takes a lot of time to
research. Yeah.
A lot of research to make it right, to make sure that it's all, you have all the facts. And the thing is, it's not just facts like from your perspective either. You have to get facts from multiple perspectives. So just because
it's not a simple Google search.
No. Yeah, so just because you maybe believe in gun control, if you just make a whole film just saying that, like, without taking into consideration why the other side feels a certain way, then you're just making a completely one-dimensional film, you know?
Yeah.
So then we're perpetuating the problem, which is a bunch of people being very passionate about their side, but unwilling to listen to other side. And I think that's the whole point of filmmaking, is to be able to spark conversation, to be able to make somebody who may not necessarily believe in your views, right? It's no point making a bunch of content to only make people who are going to watch it.
Yeah.
It's more powerful to make something that somebody who otherwise wouldn't have cared about that topic or believe strongly against that inspires them to watch it and not necessarily change their mind, but at least understand a different point of view.
Right.
You know?
Gotcha.
We definitely do that for Yalbi. Like, Yalbi, we played it in Shreveport, which is a very conservative state. And we had people who came up to us and said, hey, like, we don't, my parents, or, you know, I didn't really think about that, or I didn't believe in that, but you really made me see the humanity of the situation versus just the pure political surfacey agenda perspective. I think that's the important part, is being able to change, or at least spark conversation. For me, that's, in my filmmaking, that's my biggest goal.
Yeah, and the time and the amount of research that you take to write a script, produce it, direct it, edit, you do it all, Robert Rodriguez style. And you have all these tools underneath your tool belt. And the stories are, for those of you who never seen it, I strongly recommend watching Yalbi on Amazon, Fun Employment on Amazon. And I think your other shorts are on there too, correct?
I have some, yeah, I have 3 more that are coming, but it's taking forever for Amazon to approve it.
To get it
But
up. Yeah.
there's a few.
But the common thing with you, Christine, is that the motif is humanity in terms of like how you view the world and how everything is never like you said, a one-dimensional thing. You
And it's
have
never
to,
perfect.
huh?
And it's never perfect.
No, and that's the thing. It's like you, even whatever flaws you find in filmmaking or whatever flaws you find in writing, editing, however it is, you're still remaining true to who you are. You're still remaining true to what the story is, and it's not about you. You know what I mean? It's about the story. It's about what you're interpreting from Yalbi or En route. Any of those stories, you put in the amount of time and research into it, it clearly shows, because these films are, I mean, not only magnificent, but they're real, and they're not something that you can come across, you know, at any point, because we all love fiction, we all love, you know, all sorts of narrative storytelling, but when it comes to a real life situation that is explained through a narrative medium, it's sort of like a completely different world, because you now have to convince everybody that whatever you're seeing or whatever you're watching actually has authenticity. It's not like a run-of-the-mill thing where you feel like, well, I think this is how it goes, or I think this is how it is. Every time you show up to set, every time I've worked with you on set, you already have a clear indication of what you need to do. You always have in your arsenal what you need and what you can do to achieve it. But at the same time, you the stories that you share are I mean, I mean this with the absolute most respect. They're so emotional and raw. It's so, I mean, I've definitely, even Fun Employment, I've found myself understanding and realizing, oh yeah, we're all taking that leap of faith. It sucks when you don't have a job and you're like, well, you know what, maybe this idea that I have for a startup company will work and happen. Well, just so you know, you ain't gonna make money in the first 3 fucking years, so best luck to you. You know, the honesty in Fun Employment was all there. It
What's
was
good is the execution.
well, that's the thing.
Yeah,
It was
fun employment is extremely special to me because I was explaining this in another Instagram post that, like, when we made Fun Employment, we were in the same life milestone as the people, as the characters were in the
yeah,
film. Does that make sense?
it does,
So
because you were yeah.
yeah, I had just moved in to my friend's dining room. Like, my
In
bed
Austin, Texas.
in Austin, Texas, my
Yeah.
bed was in the dining room because that's all I could afford to be able to do my production company full time and have no backup plan.
Right.
So that is a sacrifice I was willing to make. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs out there. I've heard stories of people moving into, you know, 6 people in a house, you know, just to make their idea come to life. And so, yeah, there was truth to it for sure. And I don't think I love films that entertain. I watch plenty of those, but I don't know if I could ever just make a film purely for entertainment's sake. Like, I feel like I'm drawn to things to make a point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. There's no right or wrong, but that's just the kind
No,
of filmmaking that
that's how you are. That's your style, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But and that's why I love your. So I love your movies. That's why I love your short films, because there's that perspective of something that I never take to consideration, especially with Yalbi. You know, with a wife whose husband is still in the war zone of the country that they're in, and it's a real and honest fucking story. And this wife, and this wife is literally trying to get to her love of her life, you know. And it's a love story, kind of, in a way, but also it's a realistic perspective on what we don't talk about and what we don't experience. Because I'm, you know, my dad was an immigrant, and he went through the same trials and tribulations of moving here to America. But me being born here, I never had the struggle of being from a different country, and you're kind of rendered useless because you don't know how to talk to people. You're just trying to, you know, make it in the world. And you just have to take those chances. And I guess that's another common motif is just taking a chance and doing something that is out of your comfort zone, because your main characters do kind of come back around at the end and sort of see it full circle, and they're completely changed since the beginning of the film. And that's how you do in a narrative storytelling. You know, it doesn't even have to be fiction or nonfiction. As long as you can bring your characters back to the reality and have them understand what they learned from the very beginning, that's sort of like the whole thing. And for you with the Fun Employment and all your other short films and features, and soon to be featured en route coming to you. Yeah, it's all kind of like an amalgamation of your, I don't know. It's like a, I always say honest and real, but I want to use a different word. It's palpable. Like it's one of those things where you walk away and you sort of learn a little bit more than what you did in the very beginning. You know, you kind of take away more information before the movie even began, you know, and then after the movie, it just, you walk away thinking, okay, well, I never really quite understood what other people were struggling with, but we all have the same fundamental thing, and we're just trying to survive, you know. And survival is definitely it's definitely a thing that we do on our daily lives, but we never think about other people's perspectives. And you do your absolute best in taking yourself out of the situation and putting yourself in those characters, you know, at all times.
Actually, writing to an extent makes a lot of people better people because you are forced to think in different POVs.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the part that we're missing right now, world-wise, is that it's this inability to see from somebody else's perspective why they might think the way that they do. And instead, we try to force our opinions on people because we feel passionate about them.
Yeah.
But I think that's the beauty of film, is being able to, in a non-threatening way, show the reason for the way that you feel, and hope that that touches somebody in a positive way that will inspire the conversation. So
absolutely. I mean, for you, I want to ask you though, like in terms of research and in terms of how much you had to invest, which one of your films have you felt like you didn't know anything about? Like it could be anything, like something that you had no idea about, and then going into it, you learned the most from it. Which one of those?
You know, Yaobi was definitely one of them, but I had my parents' immigration background to kind of fall on for a lot of the milestone scenarios within the film. I knew nothing about prisons. Zero.
Yeah, Shakespeare on the Range, right?
Shakespeare was very fascinating to me. I watched so many documentaries. I read a lot of books. I watched a lot of, I guess, reality TV on prisons as well.
Yeah.
I had no clue like what prisons look like inside besides what you see in Shawshank Redemption
Yeah.
or that black,
Green Mile. Yeah.
I didn't know there was a out in there. I didn't know like what their schedule was or how they were treated or and it really taught me, man, our justice system is not the greatest either. There's so many things that we could change about it, and it's I think humans, there's so many things in this world, and we are people who compartmentalize. And it's easy to compartmentalize things that are not important to us and kind of lump them in this one little thing
Yeah.
and then understand them from an extremely surface thing. So I grew up being like, prisoners are bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Prisoners are bad. They're the dregs of society, and nobody should give a shit about them type thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was trying to achieve and what I learned doing Shakespeare in the Rain is that could happen to anyone. That's what I learned. I learned that so many things are circumstantial. So many things are wrong time, wrong place. So many things are just people are not necessarily inherently bad if they're a prisoner.
Yeah.
And there's so many systems in place that make it more easier for some people to get into the system.
Yeah.
I mean, or to avoid the system. I mean, we're seeing that right now with the recent shooting of the African American jogger.
Yeah. Just minding his own business, running. Yeah.
Yeah, minding their own business, running. I mean, that's just, we need to showcase things like that.
Yeah. So you now, I mean, I don't know how long we've been going. I don't know if you want to wrap it up here pretty soon.
Yeah, let's see. We have been going.
I feel like we've been going for 25 minutes.
Yeah,
Almost
just
just minding his own business, running.
Yeah.
Okay.
30 minutes. So we can start to wrap it up. Yes.
Okay, great. So this will be perfect. So my last question is sort of piggybacking off of what you just said with the recent shooting that we've had. How do you feel about, I mean, what do you, how you've been writing during this quarantine and set your perspectives on in a way that you're able to view the outside world, even though all this shit is going on right now with the shooting and fucking murder hornets everywhere, like how have you been grounding yourself in terms of you viewing a different perspective during this quarantine, during this whole quarantine madness? How you've had the inspiration?
So quarantine for me has been a time of reflection. And it's honestly, for me, it's been like a nice pause to be grateful for what I have available. So, I have time to work out. I have time to research. I've been putting everything of myself into Enroute, and I've been linking up with other creatives to continue to create. And so, I don't know. I guess, how do I find inspiration during this time?
Yeah.
Just reading.
Yeah.
For Enroute, for example, it is about PTSD amongst first responders. I've gone on to sites like Code Green, which supports PTSD first responders, and literally went through the forum. There's like this anonymous forum that you go in, and people go in and write down stories of like what they experienced that day or how they're suffering. And I went and I think read through at least 100 of those forums, just getting the feeling, the emotional,
Yeah.
crying. So because I think, was it Hemingway that said this? But it was something like, if there's no tear in the writer, then how can you expect tears in the reader?
Hemingway. Yeah. You got it.
Yeah. So that I strongly believe in. I feel like if I'm not feeling that, how am I going to inject that into
Understand
my
it.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what I've been doing, is been filling my brain with as much knowledge to inspire me to write to write and root, but also to continue to work with other creatives. They inspire me too, you know. And so recently there was the hashtag Corman challenge. Like, how cool was that? Like, I made a whole short with my iPhone, but I wouldn't have done that if another creative hadn't like put that out there and I'd taken the challenge. Right now, Camille, a friend of mine here in Shreveport, has a writers group, a virtual writers group, and every day we take the 15 beats of Blake Snyder on Save the Cat.
Yeah. The Beat Sheet.
Save the Cat.
Hell yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
And we go, and every day we accomplish one of those beats and we think through it.
Oh,
and
okay.
I've got two new features that I'm going through that process.
Hell yeah.
But that's like a collaborative thing. That's really cool. And so I think the problem with quarantine is people are so fixated on all the bad things, but there is a lot of good too.
Yeah.
And to just fill your brain with that positivity, and I guess just let it inspire you to survive during quarantine, or thrive from it, I guess. I
Yeah.
don't know. I feel like I'm saying a bunch of bullshit, but it's so
No, it's not bullshit. I mean, it's even for me. Like, it's hard for me to be creative, and I'm writing my first feature right now, and it's a definite challenge. And I think you're right. The best thing to do right now, what I'm doing is I'm going back to reading. Like, I'm just reading everything in terms of, like, my script is based around, it's a fictional script, but the amount of research that I do is, of course, not equivalent to what you have to do, because your research is far, yeah. But I do feel like in getting your brain soaked with all of the knowledge and reading and understanding and comprehending everything that you're reading, to then set your perspective on any of the characters that you're writing in the script, can also have a voice and also be important in the story you're trying to tell. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. I mean, like, for Rue, I've constantly interviewed multiple kinds of people. So I have friends who are EMTs. I've interviewed them. I've interviewed, sadly, I've interviewed parents of kids who were in school shootings, and that has been unbelievable. That kind of
I bet. I can't even wrap my head around that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for that. And I've interviewed the kids who were who were affected or in a school that had a shooting. I think it's perspective. It's all about representing the different perspectives.
So to end it on a high note, what kind of advice can you give to anyone who's beginning filmmaking, I guess, whoever's watching this, who wants to get into the creative, probably not just filmmaking, just get into the creative industry, just to be creative, whether it's filmmaking or whatever it is. What's the most inspiration you got?
So I totally got this message today from somebody who just DM'd me, slid into my DMs.
Hey,
like, I need help. How do I do this? So the first thing I can say is kind of identify like what I always believe in figure out what your target goal is and work your way back, right?
Yes.
So what's your goal? Do you want to be a art director? Do you want to be a director? Well, start from there and then figure out the steps that will get you there. So your end goal. If you don't know, and that's totally okay too. So I think number one is always be creating. Making your own content should be very, very, very important. And so, people complain, oh, well, I'm stuck in quarantine. How can I make something? You have a phone. Your phone literally
Shoot.
better.
1080p.
More
Yeah.
better than the stuff that was available to me like 10 years ago. Like, it's such good quality. I shot 4K with my phone. Like, it looks awesome.
And 10 years ago, you shot with a camcorder.
Exactly. So there's literally no excuse.
Yeah.
So make something. Practice. So that would be my first one. Like, and then the second would be share your work. And it's
collaborate.
People are scared to share their work.
Right.
And whatever, because criticism, but that's what you need. Mm-hmm. You need feedback. So, there used to be this like, oh, I don't want to share my script, someone will steal it, type thing. No, just go and copyright it and all that stuff, and then, do have people sign an NDA, but like, that should not be your excuse for not sharing and getting feedback, because feedback will make you grow, because you're going to be in this little writer hell that I'm currently writer hell. And you're going to think this.
I am too. Yeah.
And feedback is new perspective. It's people reading it from a different eye who will point out questions that maybe you didn't know because you already knew who the characters were, or you already know what the story is going to be like. So sometimes you forget to explain these things that you already know in your head, so feedback is essential. So share your work so that you can get feedback, so you can continue to improve.
Yeah.
And then third is find people who are better than you. Who are great at their jobs, who are willing to teach, who you can learn by watching, one of the biggest reasons why I AD, besides because I'm very good at it and I love getting paid, is that ADing, I can really see what a good director does or does not do, or a bad director does or does not do. I'm very close to that. So I'm constantly observing from an AD perspective, directors, and seeing, oh, that's cool. I want to use that when I direct. Or I'm never going to do that. Don't do that.
What not to do. Yeah.
And so learning from other people's mistakes and learning from people who are better, and working with people who are better, and giving them credit because they're awesome, and just making those connections, because from the lowest of the low, whatever, a PA, that PA could be your boss in a few years. I know this because I was a PA on a set, and not too long ago, the set that was on where I was a PA, definitely the boss asked, hey, do you have any gigs coming up or anything?
Wow. Really?
Yeah, it happens.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, so you just have to be nice. Be nice to everyone, make connections, learn from everybody, and take the best pieces and put it together and make it your own.
Make it your own.
Yes.
I like it. My phone died, but I saved the Instagram Live. I saved it.
Oh, good.
But my phone just died.
Yay! That was perfect, though.
That was perfect. Dude.
So we solved a problem. So the problem was that I should never do because the internet here is so terrible.
Yeah.
But that was flawless because your internet is great.
Yeah, and I think we're still live. Yeah, we're still live on Facebook.
Yeah. So, okay, good. Well, we promise that the next one will be a lot better.
It will be a lot better. I promise. Yeah, the next one I'm going to be more prepared. We're going to be more prepared.
Now we know how to do everything.
Yes. Now we know how to do everything. So yeah, you guys, we're going to be continuing this show. Are we doing this weekly, Christine, or what?
I think we're going to try, especially right now.
We're going to try.
We're in quarantine. We're going to try every week. And then what will happen is probably when things open up, we may have to move to like a every other week or
yes.
Yeah.
So as far as what we're doing,
yeah, we're releasing a bunch of content, and
yeah,
Fun Employment was our first season, so we're gonna slowly release that onto the Get Realism podcast.
yes.
So that will be coming out hopefully on Monday.
I'm hoping so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm hoping so, especially with the audio that I have. Hopefully we can get some of that old goodies back. Yeah, so for us in season 2 in Shelter in Place, we're gonna go deep diving into more filmmaking stuff, and hopefully we're gonna get some more. Hopefully we're gonna get guests in this shit.
I want it to not just be about me.
It should be, because here's the thing, Christine, like you have all of this knowledge. You can write another book, just like Robert Rodriguez did with Rebel Without a Crew. You can write your own fucking book if you want, with the 10 years of experience that you had. Are you kidding me?
That's quite interesting. I feel like we need to get some people who are actually cool.
Well, I think that's it. I think we're
Friday, right? We're gonna do it again Friday.
We're gonna try to do it again next Friday, and then
we're gonna try to make it Friday at 2 p.m. Right?
Friday at 2 p.m. We're gonna shoot for that every Friday. Look out for that. Instagram Live, Facebook Live. It will be better. It will be better. I promise. All right, man. Well,
what we were doing. Both of us were like YouTubing, like how to go Facebook Live.
Yeah, because the technology grows every fucking like. By the time we're ending with this conversation, I bet the new iPhone is going to be coming out anytime soon. So technology just improves every second, But without further ado, we are out of a show for today, you guys.
Go to getrealisms.com to visit.
Getrealisms.com.
Stuff. You get cool posters and cool books.
Social medias, Facebook, Get Realism on Facebook, Christine Chen on Facebook, Moth to Flame Films on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then Instagram, same thing, MTF, Moth to Flame Films on Instagram, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then go follow Christine Chen, go follow your boy Adam the Chase, and guys.
That's it.
We're good. Second episode Friday. Yeah. All right.
Without hiccups.
Yeah, without the hiccups.
Yes. All right, you gotta leave it. You gotta stop this. Leave the whole movie.
I stopped the recording.